You wake up. It's 2:14 in the morning. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, walk to the bathroom, come back, try to fall asleep again. 2 hours later, same thing. Maybe 3 times a night, maybe 4. And every time you go to the doctor, the conversation ends the same way. It's your age. It's your prostate. It's an overactive bladder. Here's a prescription, come back in 6 months. So you take the medication, and maybe it helps a little, or maybe it doesn't. But either way, 6 months later, you're still waking up at 2 in the morning. Here's what nobody told you. Your bladder is not the problem. Your bladder is the messenger. And the message your body is sending you through broken sleep, through exhaustion, through those trips in the dark, has nothing to do with your bladder and almost nothing to do with your prostate. It has to do with something much deeper, something that starts years before the symptom ever appears. And something that is completely reversible when you understand what's actually happening. That's what this video is about. Let's start with a number. Nocturia, the medical term for waking up at night to urinate, affects roughly 69% of men and 76% of women over the age of 60 in the United States. That's not a bladder epidemic. That's a systemic health signal being ignored on a massive scale. Here's how the medical system typically handles it. If you're a man, they check your prostate. If you're a woman, they call it overactive bladder. They might prescribe a drug called solifenacin or oxybutynin, anticholinergic medications that block the nerve signals causing bladder urgency. Or for men, they prescribe tamsulosin, better known as Flomax, to relax the prostate muscle. And here's what the fine print on those medications says that most people never read. Anticholinergics in older adults are associated with measurable cognitive decline. A 2015 study published in JAMA Internal Medicine followed over 3,400 adults and found that regular use of anticholinergic drugs significantly increased the risk of dementia. Not might increase, significantly increased. So the drug they're giving you for nighttime urination is connected to the thing that terrifies every person over 60 more than almost anything else. And it doesn't even fix the cause. Now let me show you what's actually going on. Your body has a hormone called ADH, antidiuretic hormone, also called vasopressin. Its entire job is to tell your kidneys to hold water at night. When ADH is working correctly, your kidneys concentrate urine while you sleep. You make less of it, you don't wake up. This is why a healthy child can sleep 9 hours without getting up once. Their ADH is functioning perfectly. As you get older, ADH production naturally declines. That's the honest part of the story. But here's what the medical establishment consistently leaves out. The rate at which it declines and how severely it declines is not just about age. It's about the environment your body is living in. And the number one thing suppressing ADH in Americans over 50 is not aging, it's insulin resistance. Here's the mechanism. When you have chronically elevated insulin, which happens after years of eating refined carbohydrates, ultra-processed food, frequent snacking, your kidneys become caught in a loop. Insulin resistance directly impairs your kidney's ability to respond to ADH signals. Think of it like a radio tower that's broadcasting perfectly, but the receiver is broken. The signal is there, the kidneys just can't pick it up anymore. So they default to dilute. They keep making urine throughout the night at roughly the same rate as during the day. Instead of the nighttime drop that healthy kidneys make, anywhere from 30 to 50% less urine production, your kidneys are operating at full production at midnight. And your bladder, doing its job perfectly, fills up and wakes you. This isn't a bladder problem. This isn't even really a kidney problem. It's an insulin resistance problem showing up through your sleep. Here's the second mechanism, and this one catches most people completely off guard. Your heart has a hormone too. It's called atrial natriuretic peptide, ANP. Your heart releases ANP when it's under stress, when it senses that something is wrong with the body's fluid pressure or oxygen levels. And when ANP gets released, it sends one very specific signal to your kidneys: make more urine and make it now. Why does this matter for Nocturia? Because sleep apnea, the condition where your airway partially or fully collapses during sleep, cutting off oxygen, causes your heart to release ANP repeatedly throughout the night. Every time your oxygen levels drop, your heart surges. Every time your heart surges under that kind of stress, ANP floods your system, and every ANP signal tells your kidneys to produce more urine. A 2012 study published in the journal Sleep found that over 80% of patients with moderate to severe sleep apnea experienced nocturia. Not 30%, not 50%, over 80%. And here's the critical part. When those same patients were treated for sleep apnea and their oxygen was restored during sleep, their nocturia dramatically decreased without any bladder medication, without any prostate treatment, without changing a single thing about their urinary system. Because the urinary system was never the primary problem. Sleep apnea is vastly underdiagnosed in people over 60. The classic profile, overweight, male, loud snorer, is real, but it only captures a fraction of people who actually have it. Women have it. People of normal weight have it. People who don't even snore that loudly have it. And most of them are getting prescriptions for their bladder when they should be getting a sleep study. If you wake up more than once a night and you've never been tested for sleep apnea, that connection alone is worth investigating before you fill another prescription. Now let's talk about something that barely exists in any conversation about nocturia, and it should be at the center of everyone: magnesium. Your bladder wall is made of smooth muscle. Smooth muscle, to function correctly, requires magnesium at the cellular level. Magnesium is what allows muscle fibers to relax. Without sufficient magnesium, smooth muscle becomes hyperreactive. It contracts when it shouldn't. It signals urgency when the bladder isn't even full. This is the physiological definition of overactive bladder, a bladder that can't properly relax between contractions. And when the underlying cause is magnesium deficiency, the solution is not an anticholinergic drug. The solution is magnesium. A randomized controlled trial published in the British Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology found that women who took magnesium hydroxide experienced significant reductions in urinary urgency and nocturia compared to placebo. The mechanism was simple: restore magnesium levels, restore smooth muscle function, restore normal bladder behavior. Here's the problem. The USDA estimates that approximately 48% of Americans consume less magnesium than the estimated average requirement. And for people over 60, that number is worse, because magnesium absorption decreases with age and is further impaired by common medications, including proton pump inhibitors, diuretics, and certain blood pressure drugs. The exact medications that many people with nocturia are already taking. The body doesn't prioritize magnesium for the bladder. When magnesium is scarce, the heart and nervous system get it first. The bladder gets what's left. And for tens of millions of Americans, what's left is not enough. Let's connect the dots here, because this is where the picture gets sobering. You wake up 2, 3, 4 times a night. Each interruption cuts you out of deep sleep, the stage where your body repairs tissue, consolidates memory, clears metabolic waste from your brain through the glymphatic system. Deep sleep is not a luxury, it is a biological maintenance cycle. And every night you miss it, the deficit compounds. Research published in Nature Communications in 2019 showed that even one night of poor sleep increases amyloid beta deposits in the brain, the same protein plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease, by up to 5%. One night. So the chain looks like this. Insulin resistance suppresses ADH. Kidneys overproduce urine at night. Bladder fills, you wake up, deep sleep is interrupted, brain waste clearance fails, inflammation increases, cognitive function degrades, insulin resistance worsens. The cycle tightens. This is not a bladder problem. This is a metabolic fire that started in your diet years ago, and the nocturia is just the smoke alarm you can hear at 2 a.m. And one more thing, broken sleep activates cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone your body releases in response to perceived danger, including the danger of insufficient sleep. And cortisol, when elevated chronically, does two things that directly worsen nocturia. It increases blood pressure, which stresses the kidneys, and it suppresses ADH production further. So the poor sleep causes more cortisol, which causes more nighttime urination, which causes more poor sleep. Most people on the medication treadmill have been trapped in this loop for years. Here's what deserves to be said plainly. Nocturia has a billing code. Overactive bladder has a billing code. Benign prostatic hyperplasia has a billing code. Insulin resistance assessed through fasting insulin, a $30 blood test, is almost never ordered in the context of Nocturia. Sleep apnea testing in the context of Nocturia is rarely the first referral. A magnesium RBC level, which shows actual magnesium inside the cells, not just in the blood, is essentially never part of the workup. What gets ordered? A urinalysis, maybe a bladder scan, a PSA for men, and then a prescription. The pharmaceutical market for overactive bladder medications alone was valued at over $4.3 billion in 2023. The market for fasting insulin tests and magnesium supplements is not tracked the same way because there's no comparable profit structure behind it. This isn't a conspiracy, it's an incentive structure. And understanding that structure is how you protect yourself inside it. Here's the part that matters, because everything you just heard about the mechanism points directly to actionable solutions. Not suppression, not symptom management, actual root cause correction. Step 1, test fasting insulin, not just fasting glucose. Your fasting glucose can look completely normal while your fasting insulin is running 3, 4, 5 times higher than optimal. A fasting insulin level of 2 to 6 micro-IU per milliliter is ideal. If yours is above 10, you have measurable insulin resistance, and your kidney's ability to respond to ADH at night is already compromised. This test costs roughly $30 and is almost never ordered without you specifically requesting it. Request it. Step 2, cut the overnight fuel source. If insulin resistance is the core driver, the most powerful single intervention is eliminating the things that spike insulin: refined carbohydrates, sugar, ultra-processed food, and reducing eating frequency. Intermittent fasting, specifically compressing your eating window to an 8-hour period during the day, allows insulin to drop for the remaining 16 hours. Over 8 to 12 weeks, this systematically reduces insulin resistance. Several clinical trials have demonstrated that low-carbohydrate diets reduce nocturia episodes, not through any direct urinary mechanism, but because they fix the insulin signal that was causing the problem. Stop eating at least 3 hours before bed. Not 4, not 2, 3 at minimum. This is not about digestion. It's about allowing your insulin levels to fall before you sleep, which gives ADH its best chance of doing its job during the night. Step 3, get screened for sleep apnea. If you snore, wake up unrefreshed, feel fatigued despite adequate hours in bed, or have a collar size above 17 inches for men or 16 for women, ask your doctor specifically for a sleep study. Home sleep tests are now widely available and covered by most insurance plans. This is not optional if you're waking up more than once a night and you've never been evaluated. The A&P pathway I described is real, documented, and entirely addressable. Step 4, magnesium glycinate before bed. Not magnesium oxide, the cheap form in most supplements that has poor absorption and mainly draws water into the colon. Magnesium glycinate, or magnesium threonate for those with neurological focus. 300 to 400 milligrams taken 45 minutes before sleep. This form crosses into tissues effectively, reaches smooth muscle, and allows the bladder wall to behave the way it's supposed to. Give it 4 to 6 weeks before judging the result because you're restoring a cellular deficit, not blocking a receptor. Step 5, rebalance potassium and sodium. The sodium-potassium ratio in the average American diet is severely skewed towards sodium. The kidneys regulate fluid balance through this ratio constantly. When potassium is low, the kidneys retain more fluid during the day and then release it horizontally at night when you lie down and gravitational pressure on your legs reverses. That fluid redistribution triggers the bladder. The daily requirement for potassium is 4,700 milligrams. The average American gets roughly 2,500. The gap is filled by eating potassium-dense whole foods: leafy greens, avocado, salmon, beet greens, Swiss chard, not a banana. A banana gives you about 420 milligrams. You need 4,700. Fill that gap with real food throughout the day. Step 6, vitamin D3 with K2. This one is less discussed but worth adding. Research published in the journal Neurology and Urodynamics found a significant association between vitamin D deficiency and overactive bladder symptoms, including nocturia. The proposed mechanism involves vitamin D receptors on bladder smooth muscle that regulate contractile function. Low D3 equals more bladder irritability. Optimal D3, maintaining a 25 OHD blood level between 60 and 80 nanograms per milliliter, requires significantly more than the standard 600 IU recommendation for most adults. Most functional medicine clinicians working in this space recommend 5,000 to 10,000 IU daily, taken with K2 to direct calcium appropriately.
Step 7. Fluid timing. This one is simple, but almost always overlooked. Drink the majority of your fluids before 5 p.m. Not because fluid is bad, but because timing is everything. Your kidneys can handle the processing load during the hours you're awake and active. Forcing them to process large fluid loads during the hours you're supposed to be sleeping defeats the biological purpose of ADH concentration. Front load your water. The goal is not dehydration, the goal is respecting your circadian biology. Let's put this together simply. If you are waking up more than once a night to urinate, your body is telling you something specific. It is telling you that your insulin is running too high, or that your oxygen is being disrupted during sleep, or that your bladder is starving for magnesium, or that your potassium-sodium balance has shifted in a direction your kidneys are struggling to manage. Probably more than one of these at once. The answer is not a drug that blocks nerve signals to your bladder while quietly degrading your cognitive function. The answer is finding out which of these mechanisms is driving your specific situation and fixing it at the source. Request a fasting insulin test. Get evaluated for sleep apnea. Add magnesium glycinate at night. Compress your eating window. Shift your potassium intake. Stop drinking fluids after 5 p.m. This is not complicated, but it requires understanding what's actually happening, which nobody took the time to explain to you until right now. Now that you understand the connection between insulin, sleep architecture, and nighttime urination, there's one more piece to this that most people completely miss. It's about what's happening inside your kidneys specifically, and why certain blood pressure medications are making this problem dramatically worse for millions of people who have no idea. I've put that video right here. Watch it next.